Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked back at a project and thought the warning signs were there all along? The client kept delaying discussions, there were too many stakeholders, timeline was unrealistic, maybe the budget it just did not match the ambition. The client that was there, he had a contractor who was his brother-in-law, but nobody stopped to ask, should this concern us? Instead, everyone assumed we'll figure it out along the way because that's how most projects begin. Unfortunately, they also begin without certainty. They begin with unidentified risk. The problem is that most firms tend to treat risk as something to manage, but that's not quite the right objective. Goal isn't to manage risk. The goal is to discover it early enough so as to change the outcome so that the risk doesn't come about. At Immaculate Platform, we look at things through two very simple dimensions. One is severity. If the risk becomes reality, how much damage could it actually cause? Some risks are small: a delayed material sample or a missed coordination meeting, a drawing clarification, but there are others which can alter, fundamentally impact the project. There could be an unavailable client, always unavailable. Unidentified decision maker enters the picture, unrealistic completion date, a contractor who consistently ignores documentation, or a founder who has to personally approve every important decision. These deserve a completely different response. And the second one, this dimension is frequency. Some risks aren't catastrophic, but they're simply exhausting because they happen repeatedly, they happen again and again. There's a client who constantly changes their mind on the most mundane of things. There's a stakeholder who reopens approved decisions. There's a vendor consistently misses commitments just by a couple of days, but it's every single commitment. Consultant who's always late with information. Project manager who escalates every small issue individually. When you look at all of them in isolation, none of them seems very serious. But collectively, together, they end up consuming hundreds of hours every year. And that brings up an uncomfortable question. Do these risks sound familiar because they're genuinely unpredictable, or because you've experienced them dozens of times but not handled them? If it's the second, then why are they still surprising your organization? That's the real failure. It's not that the risk existed. Risks exist, that's fine. But the fact that your business refused to learn from it. Every completed project should ideally make the next project safer, and if it doesn't, then like I said, your business refused to learn from it. If every contractor constantly creates scope uncertainty, then why is your qualification process not changing? If projects with five different stakeholders always experience slow approvals, then why isn't this influencing your planning? This is where the difference between managing projects and improving a business should become obvious. Project managers respond to risk. Great organization recognize recurring patterns. And at Immaculate Platform, we believe that every identified risk should answer four questions. How severe could this become? How frequently do we historically experience this? What projects or project types is this most likely to appear in? And fourth and most critically, how should our organization evolve? What should our organization do differently next time? Notice that the final question is not about this project, it's about the next one, because that's where operational maturity comes in. And here is ultimately the challenge. Think about the last five projects which became difficult. List the three biggest problems that you've had in each one and ask yourself how many of these problems were completely new and how many were simply old problems resurfacing again and again and again, maybe wearing different clothes every time. Firms don't become profitable by eliminating risks. Risks belong to environmental factors. They become more profitable by ensuring the same risk does not need to be rediscovered on every project, handled on every project. Every identified risk for any one project should leave behind a stronger, more flexible, better equipped process, a better checklist, a smarter qualification system, something, ultimately a clearer way of working. And that is how operations compound themselves. That's how uncertainty becomes a competitive advantage instead of a recurring surprise. Everything you've seen in this video and will continue to see as part of videos in this series is based on principles that we've spent years building into the Immaculate platform. If you'd like to experience them inside an operating system built ground up purely for design and architecture firms, start your free trial today at immaculate.co.in/trial. Thank you.